My name is Brent Ridgard. I'm the Director of Environment for AESG. This morning I'd like to talk to you about the taking advantage of environmental opportunities to secure international finance for projects in the Middle East. Over the past 2 decades or so, a significant amount of international finance has been secured by power and water projects across the Middle East. These projects have generally been developed through a public-private partnership model where they will procure, engineer, construct, and manage the project in a partnership. These are typically known as independent power projects if just power is required, or independent water and power projects where it is that both water, desalinated water, and power is a requirement. International finance is sought from a number of different organizations, including the World Bank, the International Finance Corporation, or Equator Principal Financial Institutions, or EPFIs. And the latter is a grouping of 131 financial institutions who have signed up to what is called the Equator Principles, which generally sets a very high standard for environmental and sustainability performance in order for projects to actually secure the finance in the first place. The standards that are required to be adhered to by international lenders are, for example, the IFC, or International Finance Corporation Performance Standards, the World Bank Environmental Health and Safety Guidelines, and the Equator Principles also have a standard that needs to be adhered to. The actual standards and guidelines are mostly deferred to the IFC Performance Standards, of which there are a series of 8 different standards that projects need to adhere to. And these cover quite a wide range of topics, including assessment and mitigation of social and environmental risks and impacts, to labor and workplace conditions, to resource efficiency and pollution prevention, to indigenous peoples, and in some projects, in fact, across the world, free and informed consent is required from indigenous or local people where it is that the project is going to take place on land that they either own or have jurisdiction over. They also include things like cultural heritage and resettlement, involuntary resettlement, for example, in a project where perhaps there is a dam that is needing to be built and people are needing to be relocated. So it is a very comprehensive set of standards that need to be met if it is that a project developer is seeking finance from any one of those organizations. There are some elements to the IFC performance standards whereby they don't supersede the requirement for local permits and approvals. So, for example, if we were to use Saudi Arabia as an example, the IFC still have an expectation that approvals will be sought from what is called the National Center for Environmental Compliance, and that's the local environmental regulator. But in addition to that, there is obviously the requirement to develop your environmental assessment according to the standards in the IFC Performance Standards. The IFC Performance Standards, and in fact requirements from international lenders, are certainly more stringent than local requirements. And I'll perhaps illustrate that by way of an example, namely the timeframes associated with developing your environmental and social impact assessment that needs to be compliant with IFC performance standards. And the example that I'll use relates to air quality. So again, using the example of Saudi Arabia, the NCEC would require the collection, assessment of data, air quality parameter data, but the monitoring period is certainly a lot shorter than that which is required by the IFC. When it is that we are doing IFC compliant environmental and social impact assessments, the length of the monitoring period is generally about 6 months. That's what we recommend to clients. And they also require longer term data to be processed and included in an air quality model, which will look at both the impacts and the mitigation related to air quality. So again, we recommend a minimum of 6 months to our clients for the air quality monitoring program, followed by the air quality model. And that is something that can not necessarily be in line with project developers' expectations around timeframes. I think it's certainly fair to say that projects tend to go according to more aggressive timeframes within the Middle East, and the assessment time is generally shorter than you will see in many other international jurisdictions. So again, in terms of socializing that with clients, we advise them that if it is that they're going to be securing international finance, they need to be prepared for a longer period of time to both undertake the monitoring, but also to complete the environmental and social impact assessment as well. So certainly one key difference between local environmental regulator requirements and IFC requirements relate to time frame. However, that's not the only consideration. As I mentioned earlier on with the IFC Performance Standards, the 8 different standards, there's certainly a much wider range of topics that you are required to do detailed assessments on in respect of the IFC Performance Standards. Again, I'll illustrate by way of example. One of the items that is not required generally in local regulations are around stakeholder engagement plans, social impact assessments, and social impact management plans. The IFC Performance Standards require a meaningful public consultation process to take place, which includes stakeholders in the public and private sector, and also followed on by a detailed assessment of social impacts and management and mitigation measures to manage those. So again, one other distinct difference between local regulatory requirements and IFC is the scope of topics that need to be covered. So where can AESG help? AESG is an organization that has a lot of experience in the Middle East in respect of helping our clients navigate what can be quite a complex pathway to international finance. And our advice to our clients is don't just try and achieve the minimum requirement of getting an approval, which is can be a tick box exercise. Use the environmental and sustainability elements within your project as an opportunity to not just differentiate the project, but make it more attractive to secure international finance from the organizations that we just mentioned. Thank you.